TG Geeks, episode 194, November 5th, 2018. Sisters, Thugs, and Red Skirts. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the two gay geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane. We're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from a place where I'm beginning to feel a little bit like cannon fodder here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, so we're going to just bounce right into this episode.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in this episode...
Never gets old.
Never gets old. Well, it may, eventually. Hopefully it's not old for you.
Oh, no, it never gets old for me.
We have Al Sparrow, who is a comic book artist and writer, and just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we'll talk to him how he got into the business and what he's doing right now and how he's doing that, etc. Got our birthday shout-outs. We got our featured podcast of the week and everybody's favorite, feedback. And in our second segment, we're going to talk about a movie that's coming out on Friday, Boy Erased, and the movie Bohemian Rhapsody that came out last Friday.
Yeah, you could not talk about two completely opposite movies.
Exactly. And we'll talk about something in our weekly recap. We're going to talk about something that's really big news for us, and then we'll have our regular follow-up items, but we're going to talk to Al Sparrow right now. And we welcome to the show Mr. Yes, notice I said Mr. Al Sparrow, who is a comic book writer, author, illustrator, letterer, jack of all trades in the comic industry.
Basically, God of his own comic book.
There you go. Welcome to the show, Al.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we have run across Al in numerous places and kind of got to know him through his work with Red Skirts with Dave Beatty, and since that time he's kind of become a friend, and I would consider you a friend. I mean, I
would say a friend. Yeah,
I have a loose,
I guess definition of friend. Wow, that's nice.
I'm an Aquarius. Everybody's a friend,
I would lend you money if I had it to lend, but I work in comic books, so you're that level of
There
friend.
you go. So you have no money to lend. We have a podcast. We have no money.
We have even less money to lend.
My heart is in the right place, though. You're that level of friend. You're not the level of friend where I'd be like, no, I don't have any money to help.
Yeah. So anyway, so tell us, who is Al Sparrow, and how did you get into comics and writing and all of that kind of stuff? Did it start at an early age, at a later age? Is it something you stumbled into? So
It started at a very young age. I grew up as a young man or a young boy with two older sisters.
Uh-huh.
One 10 years older, one 7 years older.
Wow.
So I take abuse better than any human being on the planet.
Yeah.
Really, they were loving older sisters, but older sisters can be mean. But they also were avid comic book readers.
Wow, that's cool.
And yeah, I mean that whole lie that girls don't read comics, that's baloney. Both my older sisters were avid comic readers, but they were skewed toward more female oriented.
Yeah,
comics.
I was gonna ask, what titles were they reading?
Well, and this is what turned me into the monster that I am today. They read a lot of Batgirl, of course, Supergirl,
Those are not bad titles. I read them too when I was a teenager.
Yeah, Rose and the Thorn, if you remember.
Oh yes,
that.
I do.
That was around the house. We also had a lot of Archies, the usual stuff that you can get in the supermarket queue.
Right.
But the main thing was a lot of what they read, were female-oriented titles. So I grew up, I knew who Superman was, but Superman was really just Supergirl's not quite as cool cousin.
Fighting words, boy.
To me, Supergirl was the main character, just because even before I could actually understand the word balloons, I could look at the pretty pictures and see all the artwork and kind of gather what was going on. And there was Batman Family. A lot of the books they had were collected in those great family titles that they don't do anymore, like Batman Family.
I remember those. Yeah. I collected those too. Those are great.
Yeah, so many of those titles were just part of our regular collection, and like any older sisters, eventually they discovered other stuff to do, and by then though the disease had hit with me, and so by the time I was old enough to buy my own comics, I think the very first comic that I ever bought for myself with my own money was an issue of Black Panther.
Wow,
way back when. And I can't really say that I was a full-on comic book lunatic committed, never looking back until Wolfman Perez's Teen Titans hit.
Ah, yes.
And, of course, Chris Claremont on X-Men. Those were the two big titles that, if you grew up in a certain era at the beginning of the 80s, those were the books you collected, without fail. And from then on, it's been never looking back. I've always been an avid comic book reader. I try to be a good advocate for them, and I proselytize whenever I can to people about the greatness that is comics.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad someone's doing that, because I think comic books sort of really got a bad rap for a time there, but especially when you look at what's being published today. I mean, there is a lot of really good quality stories that are being told. I mean, it could almost be likened to modern day mythology now.
Well, and that's one book that I'll go ahead and say that if you're ever curious about it, it's been out for decades now, is Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
Mm-hmm.
An absolute must-read if you truly love comics. And when I got done reading that, I came away with a whole different viewpoint on just how old comics, or as he refers to them, sequential art, really is. It's been around for centuries, almost millennia. If you think about the hieroglyphs on
the cave
Egyptian
art,
tombs,
cave art.
The Aztecs also used a very sequential art type of storytelling, and that's really all comics is an extension of. So it's literally one of the world's oldest art forms.
That is cool,
and one of the oldest forms of communication. So it's not too surprising that there's all this great stuff being written now, and so diverse. I mean, there's literally something out there for everyone. That's kind of like when people say, "Oh, I don't like comics." I don't always vocalize it, but I just say, "Well, I don't think you're looking hard enough." There's something out there for you.
There's something there for everybody, and it's also a great place for all types of commentary too. I mean, that's why I think there's a lot can be told, and told in a very digestible manner in the form of a comic book or a graphic novel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's so many different flavors to it as well. I mean, if you like superheroes, if you like mystery, if you like manga, has its own beast, for want of a better word. I mean, there's literally a manga for just about anything. I found one the other day. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, and I can't. There's whole genres to cooking, devoted just solely to cooking.
Right.
There's a series called Cells at Work that I'm reading right now and loving it. There's an anime version as well. But it's all about how your body is literally a factory. And so all the characters are red blood cells, white blood cells, mitochondria, platelets. They're all little characters that are basically like UPS delivery men.
Well, that's cool.
Moving around your body, and I'm not doing it justice. It really is hilarious because they get invaded by bacteria and sicknesses and diseases and stuff who all look like rejects from Dragon Ball Z, and they have to fight them off, and it's a fun series. But, that's something that, if you just think comics and all you're thinking about is Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man.
No, there's so much more.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, I mean, there's so much more out there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. As a young man and boy, I never really discovered a comic book that grabbed my attention. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And probably wasn't looking hard enough, but I had a lot of other things.
Well, and not to knock
too.
where you lived either, but I'm wondering if maybe the comic book industry wasn't really very well represented where you were living at the time.
Yeah.
I lived in the Bay Area, so we had great, huge comic book stores that we could see, a variety, infinite number of titles, and where you grew up, you may not have had that.
In a little town in Oklahoma, and the only place you could find comic books was at the grocery store and the convenience store.
Right. So
your pickings were
between. Your pickings were very few.
Yes. But
I'm originally from central Kentucky, and we kind of had the same basic problem. We didn't get full-on comic book stores that were dedicated solely to comics until probably when I hit college.
Right.
So, up to that point, I got my comic books either at a convenience store or at, of all places, a Hallmark store.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that's
actually sold comics, one of the ones in the mall. And then the weirdest thing was the best comics that I could ever find were at a bait and tackle shop when I'd go fishing.
Oh, that's
no way.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Wow.
He had every issue of every DC title I could ever want.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It was just weird.
Yeah, that was just one of those things that I didn't find one that drew me in, and my circle of friends, while they may have been into comic books, they never really, it wasn't something that they shared with me. So I didn't get into that until I'm an adult now. And now that I'm kind of in this thing that we're doing, I've discovered a lot of really, I love the artwork. I love some of the stories, the graphic novels, and the Red Skirts is a perfect example of something that's fun to read and to look at, and it just.
Okay, well, that's a great.
Lots of things.
That's a great segue. So you talked about your upbringing. So how did you get into it and get into the business, shall we say? And how did you finally get that dovetailed into doing Red Skirts?
Well, it's entirely the fault of one person, and hopefully he'll listen to this podcast. Stephen Reed. I don't know if you've met him. He's a local Arizona artist. He used to work for Fox Animation Studios, so he did work on like the movie Anastasia, Titan AE when Fox Animation Studios had a studio here in
I remember
and then
something about that. Yes.
Well, I was going to say TU, but
TU works, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he died.
If you haven't had him on your show, he would be a great guest to have.
But I think we've seen him at Comic-Con.
We've seen him up in the Verde Valley.
Yeah. I can put a question to him if he'd be interested in doing it. But yeah, he's solely responsible for dragging me from the fanboy side to the actual participant in the game.
Oh, cool.
So I was content to be just a regular old comic book reader and just, enjoy reading the funny books and shelling out half my paycheck every Wednesday to get more of them. But we both worked for the same company, a place called KnowledgeNet. It's not even there anymore. But it was building educational software, kind of that kind of stuff. And we both found out we had a mutual love of comics. And he said, yeah, I was an artist. I worked for Fox Animation. And he's like, one day he just comes to me and says, hey, I want to make a comic. Go ahead and write something.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I'm, well, that's simple enough. Sure, easy enough. So I got thinking in my head, okay, what am I going to write? And we thought, let's just do a little 6-page gag strip. So I was like, okay, well, what would happen if 2 henchmen got lucky and actually shot and killed Batman and Robin?
Uh-oh.
Oops.
And, totally for humor's sake. So I wrote 6 quick pages, and then this happens, and this happens. And we, of course, don't call them Batman and Robin because we're not going to get sued. Not that we were thinking of publishing it at that point. But we instead named them Dark Cowl and the Finch.
Don't. That's good.
So I wrote these 6 pages. He drew them. We both had a good chuckle, and then we looked at each other and went,
just broke
"What
Keith.
happens? What happens next?"
You just broke Keith. He can't stop laughing.
Oh, my.
The Finch is great because what's developed out of the Finch is that Dark Cowl has had exactly 37 Finches over the course of his career.
Oh, God.
They all die horribly. They all meet a horrible death, sometimes at the hands of Dark Cowl accidentally.
Oh, dear.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's one we drew where he accidentally pushes the Finch over a ledge to save him.
Oh, dear.
Stand back, I'll save you, and he accidentally pushes him over the...
One of
that
those
is
comedy of error things.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, we got those 6 pages done, and then, we had a good chuckle at it, and then we looked at each other and was like, okay, well, what happens next?
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we're 10 issues in and over a decade of working together on a comic book called Thugs.
Oh.
Thugs is basically... you remember the show Lost, where the writers or creators on Lost constantly got accused of they're making this up as they go along?
Right.
Well, we really are. We really are making
Just
this
flying
up.
by the seat of your pants.
We have 12 issues planned of it. We're on 10 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it may go more. I don't know. Depends on whether I can actually wind everything up the way I want to. But it's basically the story of what would happen if 2 henchmen got lucky and off 2 major league superheroes. Because you have to figure, not only would the superheroes be out to avenge their fallen comrade, but also the supervillains are going to be angry about it because they got shown up by 2 ordinary schmucks.
Mm-hmm.
And, these 2 guys aren't superpowered. They're not anything. It's basically just 2 guys who work for the big league supervillains. And they got lucky and did the impossible. And little things get revealed along the way, like it's revealed that Dark Cowl was really kind of a jerk. And obviously he keeps putting little kids in danger with the Finches. And
Right.
we just started seeing how far could we push this thing. Like we have a Wonder Woman XP called Ultra Maiden, and halfway through she gets hit with something called the genderification gun and turns into a guy.
Oh.
And she has to realize, what it's like to walk around as a guy, and she's not enjoying it. In the meantime, the Liberty Syndicate, which is our version of the Justice League, replaces her with another Wonder Woman, as often happens in comic books.
Mm-hmm.
The character that we all grew up reading, suddenly she's not that character anymore. Let's put a new character in.
Yeah, this
So it
is
was
your
kind-
version of a reboot.
Yeah, it was kind of a commentary on that, and the problem is everybody likes the new version of the Wonder Woman because the other one was kind of a jerk also.
Wow.
Basically, all superheroes are jerks in this comic, but it's a buddy comedy. It's a fun way to just poke fun at superheroes and all the foibles and tropes and stuff that we all have come to take for granted after decades of reading them. And we just have been having a ball making it. And every now and then I write myself into a corner, and Steve will be like, "You do know that this can't happen, right?" And I'm like, "Well, sure, but I can just say it's magic, and we'll explain it."
Yeah,
that
hand
way.
wavium.
Yeah, we'll hand wave it away, and yes. So we've been working on that for about a decade and going strong on it, having fun with it. But from that, I ended up doing an in-store appearance with Dave Beatty at a comic book store out in Apache Junction.
Mm-hmm.
And, we sat next to each other, and, of course, we got talking about this, that, and the other thing. And we started talking about all the science fiction shows that we loved growing up. Battlestar Galactica, of course, Star Trek, Space 1999, Buck Rogers, all these shows, V. And one thing led to another, and we decided, hey, let's go out to dinner after this before he has to drive back up to where he lives. And he was like, I've had this idea in the back of my head for the longest time about, it's just 2 words right now, red skirts, where, it's instead of red shirts, it's red skirts. And I literally made him put his fork down, and he said, "Stop right there. You've hit gold. Let me write this."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Yeah, okay," because Steve had put in a good word for me to Dave and said, Al's really good at writing, which, I'll always owe him for that. But, I think Dave was expecting me to come back with like 3 or 4 pages of, okay, here's a rough synopsis of what we'll do. literally over the weekend I wrote 70 pages worth of character development, script ideas, blah, 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 and shot it back to him, and I think he was like, holy crap. Is this guy psychotic or what? And the rest is history. We've been chugging right along on it. Our basic rule that we have is it's tough to call it a webcomic because to me a webcomic is something that has consistency and regularity.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, if you say your comic is going to be up every Wednesday, it needs to be there every Wednesday, a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave and I don't work under that kind of timeline. So I refer to it as a comic book that is on the web.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready to do our Kickstarter because we finished the first big chapter. So we'll be putting that together soon, and I'll be advertising and being really annoying on social media with it and all that.
Let us know. We'll have the both of you on the show to promote that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
we're really big supporters of independent creators, as you know, and when they're doing Kickstarters, I mean, we like to give them as much push as possible.
But it does get to be, it got to be tough. I don't think either one of us thought it would take us 3 years to get the first story arc done. But the thing is, Dave is a working artist, so, when he would get a paying gig, he would actually say, look, I've got a gig that I've got to do that pays me money, and I guess he thought I was going to get all angry about it or something, but I'm like, no, dude, you have to get paid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing Red Skirts for the love of the craft, and because it's fun to do, and because people are really receptive to it. That's the kind of stuff that...
That's my next question. Well, okay, so regarding Red Skirts and also Thugs, because that just sounds like the most awesome story ever. What has been the reception on that in terms of the viewers? I mean, or the readers? How have they been receiving it?
Thugs has a very definite audience because while we try and keep Red Skirts more family friendly, Thugs is not.
Mm-hmm.
Thugs is very much how many lewd jokes can we throw in, and if we don't tick somebody off at least once, well, then we haven't really been trying, have we?
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. We did a whole arc one time because I'm trying to think how to word this. We've done a few where it's kind of like, should we have published this? And then we figure, yeah, we should, because this is us. This is what we're doing. And people either are going to respond to it or they're not. The old the show that I absolutely love, Mystery Science Theater 3000,
mm-hmm.
Their whole mantra is, we don't worry that everybody's going to get every joke. We know that the right people are going to get the right jokes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And that's kind of been the way I approach anything. If I'm starting to question myself about should I put this in, if I think it's genuinely funny or if it's got a real point to it, I know there's got to be somebody else out there who will think the same. And so that's kind of how we approach Thugs, and it's been a lot of fun to do, and our audience for it is great. As soon as I give the pitch to it at conventions, we have 9 issues out now. I think at least twice at this last Phoenix Con, all I had to do was pitch issue 1 to them. They bought the entire run because they're like, that sounds good enough. I want to know exactly what happens all the way through this. And I've done a few where I have issue 1 put in their hands, and I jokingly say, I'll see you tomorrow, figuring they're going to go home and read issue 1 and come back, and they do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things, okay, I need 2 through 8, because holy crud, this was a great setup. So I know we've got something really good with Thugs, and Red Skirts, I can't even begin to define how well that's been received. I guess the best example I can give is we had 1 issue out. The first issue was being unveiled at a Phoenix Comic-Con, and we had a cosplayer.
Oh,
wow.
That day, Arisla, forgive me if you listen to this and I mispronounce your name, Arisla Yukishiro, that's it. And our good friend Randy Knight, who was also an avid Thugs promoter and supporter, they got together and developed a Red Skirts uniform for her to wear to help promote the book.
Super.
Wow. That is fan support.
Yeah, and then my wife showed up as one of the characters as well later on that convention. We've had a Red Skirts cosplayer at pretty much every convention. Red from Tales of the Con often shows up, and she doesn't want to be a red skirt. She has a command uniform, so la-di-da, But we're absolutely floored by how supportive people get. And, red skirts is a pretty easy sell. People see it. They see the outfits, which admittedly look fairly close to Star Trek. So that's enough to get them interested. And,
Right.
I've had more than one person say, aren't you worried about getting sued? And I have to explain what parody is and what an homage is. And,
Right.
no, I'm pretty sure the ghost of Gene Roddenberry is not going to come after us. And,
Right. Well, I'm sitting here looking at our framed copy of the first Red Skirts that you and Dave signed there at that Phoenix Comic-Con when it was released.
I remember that.
It's right here on our wall.
Do you do?
And I love it. I think it is great.
Do you do?
Dave is absolutely a phenomenal artist.
Oh, he's
Oh, my
amazing.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're not too bad yourself.
No, you're not. And that was my next thing. You've done some artwork on your own, have you not? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Say no more.
Hint, nudge, nudge. Yeah. There's a saying, and I never knew this. I never knew this until about a year ago. The whole jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
I never realized there's a second verse to that, and it's always better off than a master of one.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, I never knew that until like a year or so ago. And the thing is, I, by my own admission, am a dabbler in all this. I write, I draw. I really love lettering. Lettering is the thing that I think I enjoy most about the process. I think because I love crossword puzzles and puzzles in general. And lettering, for a large part, is how are you going to fit a square peg in a round hole?
Mm-hmm. Well, you shave
How am
off
I
the
gonna
corners.
Yeah. How am I going to take all these? How am I going to take all these words that I've written and make them fit around Dave's art so I'm not covering Dave's art?
Uh-huh.
And we talked about it some, and Dave's like, you really don't have to worry about covering my art up, and I'm like, I beg to differ.
Yeah, you don't want to cover the art up.
It's more important to me that I want people to see what he does,
Right.
and the amazingness of it and all like that. But so I've gotten into all that, but there are also stories that I wanted to tell as the bug hit. After I started getting thugs under my belt and doing that for a while, I was like, here's some stories I have in my head that I want to do that I don't know that I want to share with an artist. I want to actually tackle it myself. Mm-hmm. So I started working on a story about an 8-year-old girl whose soul gets taken over by a Norse warrior from the ancient past.
Wow.
And that was Barbara Berrien.
Barbara Berrien.
Her name was Barbara Warner. Her soul gets taken over. She has a helmet that she wears everywhere. And she spoke in like really bad, my approximation of Nordic English, which really comes across as biblical. Mm-hmm. A lot of these, thous, and the others.
Right.
Basically, she talks like Red Sonja. But in a typical Peanuts type high school or elementary school setting.
Oh, wow.
I had this crazy idea in my head that I could do a webcomic and that I could do a kid's book. And as time progressed on it, I realized I really don't want to do a kid's book. And I really don't want to do a full-on webcomic by my own definition of it where I'm committed every Wednesday to getting a page out. Mm-hmm. It's a tough gig. Don't if you're interested at all in getting into comics, understand that it's a commitment of time as much as anything.
Oh, we get that. Trust
me.
And it can consume your life.
Absolutely.
It is a beautiful thing as the writer aspect to be able to write the script and send it off and say, okay, I'll see this whenever, because you're already working on 2 other scripts. But I really enjoyed working on Barbara Berrien, and it's going to wind up by the end of this year. I've actually drawn the final scripts. I just need to letter them. And they're up on my website in their entirety. Some are great. Some I think are really cute and really funny. Some of them I look at and kind of wince, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you weren't on your game there. But that's the nature of comics as well. Mm-hmm. But I'm also working on a couple other things that go back to my absolute love of comics, and these should be appearing next year, hopefully in time for Phoenix Con. I'll get at least one of them done. If you follow me online at all, and at the end, I'll give you all the information you can if you're crazy enough to want to follow me. I do a sketch a day and post it to Instagram, and a lot of them focus on two groups of characters, and one is a pair of witches that I started drawing one Drawloween about 2 years ago. Drawloween, for those of you who don't know, is a daily drawing challenge where every day you draw something around a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Halloween-based theme because, of course, it all takes place in October. Well, I started drawing, to the theme, and I kept coming up with these two crazy witches. And as I kept drawing them, it's like, there's got to be a story behind these two. And to go completely around on a different tangent and then bring it back home, because I warned you guys I was going to do that, there's a great website that'll show you what comics were actually published the month you were born.
Right.
Ah.
And I checked mine, and interestingly enough,
It was two witches.
Vampirella.
Oh, my.
Okay, well, that's pretty awesome.
I share a birthday with Vampirella. Now, the thing is, growing up, of all the comics I read, horror comics were the least interesting to me. I never really cared for being scared of stuff, and I didn't like grotesque horror or anything like that. But the thing is, I just thought it was interesting that of everything that came out the month I was born, Vampirella came out. So I'm like, you know what? They had these great anthology series, and God bless them, one of the comic stores that I was doing an in-store at had one of these massive tomes of Vampirella for like half off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a day in court, Vampirella. Mm-hmm. I sat back, and I was absolutely floored. The artwork is just gorgeous in these books.
Right.
Not just in Vampirella, but in Creepy, in Eerie. Some hack named Neil Adams was in the first issue. I don't know that he ever made a name for himself in comics, but, he's in that first issue. Just so much amazing artwork and great storytelling, and over time I developed an actual love for horror comics, especially these magazine anthologies.
Right.
There's a number of people who do their own horror anthologies in that same vein. They print them at magazine size, black and white, different artwork wherever they can get it. And there's one called Creeps right now. There's one called Tomb of Terror. And hopefully next year I will have Twitch out, which is going to basically be the story of these two witches. Twitch. Twitch.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I wish we could talk with you more, but we're kind of running out of time here.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so with that, where can people find your stuff? You mentioned Instagram. Where else can they find all things Al Sparrow and your works?
Okay, if you can remember the two words, Studio Fugazi. And that's studio like in studio, and then Fugazi, Fugazi. You can go to Facebook, look up Studio Fugazi, and follow me on Facebook. A lot of my artwork gets posted there. You can also follow me on Instagram at Studio Fugazi. It'll be a picture of, you'll know it's me. There's a drawing of one of the henchmen from Thugs on there. If you're interested in picking up Thugs, it is available on Indie Planet. IndiePlanet.com. Just do a search for Thugs and look for Flint Lockjaw and Al Sparrow. Flint Lockjaw is Steve's nom de plume for his writing. I think he's gone back to using Stephen Reed now, but you can actually order your own copies. I believe we have the first 8 issues up right now.
Cool.
You can read Red Skirts online for free. www.redskirtsonline.com. The entire first chapter is up there for your perusal, and I will say we are going to do a Kickstarter for a print version of this. It's going to be well worth picking up, even if you read the online thing.
Exactly.
Because we are going to tweak it. Think of this as the raw footage is what you're seeing online. We're going to go through and look at it with a fine-tooth comb and fix the things that we didn't, that we would want to fix. Mm-hmm. And so that stuff will be available. Twitch will be out next year. I didn't have time to talk about my other projects, and I'll just leave it at that.
Wow, this has been incredible.
It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Who knew?
Who knew? Who knew? I guess the last thing I would say is, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I would like to follow a career in comics, I try and support anybody who wants to do that as much as I can. The old joke I always say is don't, because it's just make sure that you're in it for a love of it, because you have to love doing this in order to want to do it to the level that most of us do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Al Sparrow, master of all, I should say.
Master of all. I like that. I'll have that nameplate printed up for myself.
There you go. You don't want to inflate that ego anymore.
Well, thank you for having me on, guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, it's Brian Augustine. Some people say I'm a comic book legend, and who am I to argue? You're listening to Two Gay Geeks, and I don't exactly know why, but have fun.
Thank you for that, Brian. He's just as crazy as we are.
Yeah, he knows he can get away with it.
His
too.
sense of humor is as warped as we are.
Twisted.
Exactly. And here's a few selected birthdays for November 5th through November 11th, 2018. November 5th, Tilda Swinton.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just saw her in the new Suspiria. Wow, what a interesting and strange film that was. But
Very.
I kind of liked it, but
Visually, it's amazing.
yeah. Also on November 5th, Bryan Adams.
Canadian rocker.
Yes, Sam Rockwell, Chris Hemsworth,
Thor.
Art Garfunkel, Roy Rogers, and Trigger. And
his horse.
Trigger. Yeah. Armin Shimmerman and Elkie Summer.
Wow, there's a name I haven't heard since the days of Match Game.
Well, the reason I put Elkie Summer in here is because she was the star in The Oscar. One of the worst movies of all time.
Horrible piece of garbage.
Yeah. So
that was co-written by Harlan Ellison.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Crazy Uncle Harlan.
Exactly. And it was a crazy movie. It's just there.
It's insane.
It's weird. Yeah. Also on November 5th, friend of ours, Tiffany Mangan.
Happy birthday, Tiffany.
Happy birthday, Tiffany. November 6th, Sally Field.
The Flying Nun.
Yeah. The Flying Nun, yes. For those of us who remember. And Rebecca Romaine and Facebook friend Andrew Cash. November 7th, Marie Curie, who discovered
radium.
Radium. She's irradiated, huh?
That's how she died?
Exactly. November 7th, yes, I was not excited about that. That was not an intentional. Also, November 7th, Joan Sutherland and Judy Tenuta.
I'm looking at a photo of her right now.
Sitting on our wall that she autographed. Thank you to Crazy Joe for
getting that for us.
Yeah. And also a friend of ours, Keith Byron. November 8th, Alfre Woodward and Tom Anderson. He was a friend of mine on Facebook. He was the co-founder, or not Facebook, of MySpace. He was a co-founder of MySpace.
That Tom Anderson.
That Tom Anderson.
He was everybody's friend on
Really?
Yeah, go MySpace, yeah.
Dang it.
I know.
I thought it was special.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, darn. Also on November 8th, Sir Edmund Halley.
They named a comet after him?
Yeah, or he was named after a comet.
Oh, maybe that's it.
I think that was it. Which came first? The comet or Edmund Halley?
No comment. I got nothing.
No comment.
No comment. I got nothing.
No comment.
But
yeah. Where's there it is.
Never had that on time. Wow.
It's not existent. Anyway, also November 8th, our niece, Summers Diane Sellers.
Yeah, happy birthday, Summers.
Yeah, Summers. and Facebook friend Cynthia Ward. November 9th, Hedy Lamarr.
That's Headley.
No, it's Hedy.
Oh.
This one's Hedy. This one's Hedy Lamarr. She was, wow, it's amazing the things that woman did. Mm-hmm. She was an incredible intellect and talent, and what a talent. Also, November 9th, Carl Sagan, Dorothy Dandridge, who played Carmen Jones in...
in that movie.
Yes. Mary Travers.
Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Tony Kim of
Happy
Hero
birthday, Tony.
Within.
The stuff he's creating
my
out
gosh.
now is
It's
awesome.
Just check out his website, herowithin.com.
It is amazing.
It's amazing. Superhero wear.
Wow.
And also Zach Hayhurst, who
happy birthday, Zach.
is Arizona Opera with Arizona Opera. November 10th, Taryn Edgerton.
From The Kingsman.
Yes. Roy Scheider, Neil Gaiman, Greg Lake
Of ELP.
and Anne Reinking. It's interesting that Anne and Roy Scheider share a birthday.
That's
when
right.
Roy played...
He played, God.
Bob Fosse.
Bob Fosse, yeah.
Yeah.
In All That Jazz.
Yeah, fascinating. When I ran across that, I thought, oh, well, they both have to be in here, of course. And then also on November 10th, Francois Couperin, who was a famous harpsichord organ player. He wrote a lot for the harpsichord. Ask Brendan Mahoney, our friend, who has 2 harpsichords now. They're looking at maybe having more and turning one into a dining room table in the front.
Serious?
If he listens, he will kill me. November 11th, Stanley Tucci, Kurt Vonnegut, and a friend of ours that we met on a Disney cruise, Andrew McDade.
The man's insane, but I love him.
Crazy.
He's a crazy loon, but he's awesome.
And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Hi, this is Holly. You're tuned in to Krypton Radio. It's sci-fi for your Wi-Fi.
Go give a listen to our friends over at Krypton Radio. Lots of stuff going on over there, including our show on 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays. So now, what is it? What are we doing now?
Well, it's in the script.
Should I turn that down?
Oh, please. Thank you. We got just a few things we want to hit on. Starting off from episode 189, we got a comment from good friend of the show, Arkle. And he writes, my former roommate, not the racist one, the one after her, actually has kind of funny story about Anne Rice. He grew up in New Orleans, and one day he was sitting on a bench reading her books when this woman sat down next to him and asked him how he liked the book he was reading. He told her that he liked it so far, then looked up, and wouldn't you know it?
What?
Well, that's as far as Arkle goes. Arkle, you need to tell us the rest of the story.
What happened after
What happened after that? Who was it?
Who was it?
Please, we know.
Did she sign the book?
Yeah. Hey. What a thought. And then lastly, we got a comment on an old classics newly reviewed we did on Victor Victoria. And got a first comment from Jeannie Koch, and she said, I love that movie so much. And got one from Andrea Richoff. Absolutely one of my favorites. Then I got a comment from Michael Ferris, and he writes, when are you going to review American Flyers? Well, okay, Michael, I admit, I happen to like that movie a great deal too. Maybe we'll touch on that one. And then lastly, got a comment from Eric Coleman. He is one half of Cheshire Moon. And he says, Blake Edwards' last great film. It's a delight from beginning to end. I watched it a few weeks ago. It's a textbook for what makes a great comedy.
Yep.
I can't argue with that one. And that is our feedback for today.
What happened?
I don't know. What did
know.
you do? You clicked a button.
I pressed something and
pressed
my
a button and
script went away.
It all went away.
You can comment on our Facebook page. You can comment on tggeeks.com on the articles or on the episode or the article for each episode in the show notes. You can comment on Twitter, on the Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah.
As well as any place else you can find us.
Yeah, we collect feedback from all those sources.
Yep. Or you could even call us and leave us a voicemail, and you can we'll play that on air. So you can call 469 TG Geeks. That is 469-844-3357. And please play nice. That's all I'm going to say. Or if you don't play nice, you ain't going to get your comment approved. So, that's it.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Okay, just got a few minutes, but wow, we saw two movies this past week that, I mean, you could not ask for two more opposite movies, but oh my word, were they both amazing. First one, this is a press screening for the upcoming film Boy Erased, and that was from, I believe, Focus Features.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. Among other,
an amazing movie. My review for this movie will be coming out on Thursday.
Yeah.
But I will go ahead and say that I think the movie was unbelievably amazing. The acting was spectacular.
Wow.
Not one weak performance from anybody in this movie. Nicole Kidman.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Everybody was stunning.
Everybody was fantastic in this movie.
That's our
pre-review.
But that's about all we can say because the embargo's not up on the film.
Yeah, there's still an embargo on that, so we really can't go into much on that except, just a little soundbite here and there. Amazing performances, raw. It'll leave you feeling
uncomfortable.
It'll leave you feeling very uncomfortable, but at the ending, I think there's some good healing.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful movie. So when that film comes out in your part of the world, I would highly recommend seeing it. Drag your friends. Drag anybody you know. It's a phenomenal film. So now we can move on to something that has come out.
Yay!
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh my gosh.
And my review, as of the time we recorded this episode, my review came out this morning. So on Sunday. So if you're hearing it when this episode comes out on Monday, it came out yesterday. If you're hearing it on Krypton Radio, it came out 2 days ago. But yeah, the review is out now. But I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 crowns. I mean, this movie was just amazing.
I was really impressed with the acting and the way they played the characters, the story, and I mean, you have significantly more knowledge of the band than I do, so there was a little bit of a time hop in the timeline.
I sensed some definite compression and time hopping that went on with the band's history, but that never took anything away from it.
No, it was. I mean, I thought Rami Malek did a fabulous job.
There are scenes where I swear to God, I'm looking at Freddie. I thought he was just unbelievable, and the same goes with Gwilym Lee, who played Brian May. I mean, if you look at our review, and we'll have the link for that review in our show notes, there is a picture of Brian May standing next to Gwilym Lee in Brian May makeup, and you'd think you're looking at a younger clone of Brian. I mean, he's amazing in this film.
Yeah.
And the music is glorious, and they've even got some interesting little outtakes that I had not heard before that really just made chills go up and down my spine. And I think like Freddie's little parking lot audition for the band was beautiful.
Yeah.
I love this movie so much. I know that there are some people that are kind of giving it a not so great a review. I loved it. If you are a fan of Queen, you will love this movie. That's all I really have to say. And
it's great.
Check it out. I mean, just really quickly, what was a highlight of the movie for you?
Oh my gosh, I think probably the Live Aid.
I think that's for a lot of people the Live Aid performance. Yeah. It was, oh God, when they did "We Are the Champions."
Yep.
Oh
wow,
man, it made me cry.
Yep,
so beautiful.
I was a little verklempt in several parts of the film.
It was
a beautiful
fabulous
film, just a beautiful film.
Yes.
So go see it.
Yes.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counselors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
Quick weekly review.
Yes, starting off Sunday, October 28th, we had issue number 20 of Dr. Zombie Monster Family Physician from Tommy Cannon. On Monday the 29th, there was TG Geeks episode 193. On 130, there was a press release for a movie that I'm kind of excited about. It looks like a fun holiday horror film called All the Creatures Were Stirring.
And we'll have a review of that soon.
Fairly soon. And another press release, there was a movie called Brothers.
It's a film web series.
A web series, thank you. It was screened at New Fest in New York City. And then something, can't get enough Italian horror, try OTT streamer Midnight Pulp.
Yeah, they have all kinds of Italian horror films, all of the Mario Bava and Dario Argento films.
Yeah. Oh, if you want some great cinematography, that's where you want to go.
Yep.
And then on October 31st, mystery movie, an old classics newly reviewed from Jeannie Koch. I won't say what it is. If you want to know, check out the links, but it was a lot of fun to read. And then we had another press release for Black River Meadow, another web series from Gareth David Lloyd. That released on the 31st. The first episode. And then there's also a review that I wrote on what is happening over in Black River Meadow. And then there is an article from Ro. She gave a little single article about all the movies that she looked at for the month of October. And then on November 1st, there was a review for the new horror film Suspiria. This is an homage, not a remake, not a reboot. It's an homage of the original 1977-78 horror film. And then Andrea Richoff came out with a review for the new Disney film, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And then on Friday the 2nd, issue number 35 from Hamish Downey of News Sushi, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. And then Ro came out with another review, Can You Ever Forgive Me? Actually, she had two reviews, and then she has her own review for Bohemian Rhapsody. And then we had a little article about our evening with Neil deGrasse Tyson. We got to see him do a show here in Phoenix. And then on November 3rd, Saturday, a press release for Catsbury Park Convention, how they announced they're doing a second year of their convention. And then
I put that in there because it was just I'm a crazy cat lady.
Well, we both are. And then a really enjoyable press release. I can't wait to see this. Nothing Like a Dame. This is a movie also known as A Tea with the Dames. Check that out. It deals with Judi Dench, Maggie Smith, and wow, it's hoots, and two other wonderful British actresses. So check out. We'll have the links for those in our show notes for this episode.
Yeah, and, another thing that we released actually on Sunday, but I want to talk about right now.
Yes,
so.
This is big.
We have now, with our traffic and tracking of the website via Alexa.com, we are now in the top 10%
of tracked websites.
Tracked websites globally. And
that's 30 million.
That's the 30 million websites that are tracked out of the 200 million active websites and the 1.8 billion
total websites.
With the pinky to the face. Yes. Websites in the world. And we're in the top 6% of the websites in the U.S.
That's a serious deal.
I'm kind of proud about that.
Very proud of it.
We could not have done it without you, our listeners, the visitors to the website, everybody that comments, reads our articles, likes our Facebook page, everybody
people who
that
contribute to our website.
And,
Andrea Richoff, Jeannie Koch, Tom Levine, Hamish Downey, Tommy Cannon,
Rhonda Moore, Romo.
Yeah. And even people that did a couple of one shots here and there. Arkle wrote a couple of one shots. David Wagner did one for us not long ago, a couple of years ago, and actually less than a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago. But all of you helped.
Thank you.
And we can't thank you enough for that.
Yep. And you can find all of these articles at tggeeks.com as well as entries on our Facebook page. Please visit and comment. As always, we got some follow-up items. Check out the widgets on the side of the page and at the bottom of each article. They are Amazon ads, so they kind of help us a little bit. We're supporters of Arizona Opera. Hope you will be too. Season has started. Please check out azopera.org and check out our restaurant reviews, a new category that we've got. And as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, just like Al is, independent creator, filmmaker, comic book artists, writers, others. Please buy their stuff. Please comment on their Facebook page or any social media. Tell people about the stuff. If you go to a con, please have cash for them. And please consider supporting independent creators.
Special shout out to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter, Michael C. Burgess on Twitter, The Human Arkle on Twitter. They all publish Paper.Lees, which we publish our own content. Doctor Who Talking Who's is the Doctor Who Fancast Guide. You can find it by searching Twitter at Talking Who. Michael C. Burgess's is the Byronic Semi-Diurnal Aggregator. You can find them by searching Twitter at Byronic. That is Byronik. And the Human Arkles is the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News. You can find them by searching on Twitter at Arkle, A-R-K-L-E. And speaking of him, he was this season 2 of his shameless cash grab?
Yeah.
You can find that on YouTube.
Yeah, I think he started season 3 already.
Oh, season 3. Oh, my goodness
he's
gracious me.
Just started it.
Just started it. But I know he has started a new season. And you can find him on YouTube by searching Arkle Studios. And lastly, I must give a special shout out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, for allowing us to post our episodes and any sort of relevant content and articles that might be of interest there. And you can find them by searching facebook.com/groups/The Gay Geek. And as always, special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves, for allowing us to share all of that content there.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And thanks for everybody that has clicked on the Amazon ads. It helps us, and if you buy something, it kind of adds a few cents to our pocket. So thank you so much. And lastly, we are now on Spotify, and check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. Please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got it's audio only, but you can listen to it there if you wish. Up next week, I believe we're going to have David Lee Summers.
David Lee Summers. That was great fun.
It's a 2-part interview. So in the first part, we're talking David Lee Summers, the author, and in the second part,
astronomer.
Huh?
Astronomer.
The first one is author.
Is it?
Yes, and the second one was astronomy.
No.
Anyway, it's one one way or the other. Either way, he's works at Kit Peak, and also
he was so entertaining.
Yeah,
we had great fun.
There it is. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out our article for this webcast episode. You can find that at tggeeks.com. We're going to have several links on the page. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website. You can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Peace.
Cheers.